One of the most frustrating things you might experience as a cruise ship doctor is dealing with a manager, your management, and realizing that you are not on the same page. What I'm trying to say is you having a weak management, a weak medical director. But sometimes you might find a manager, a medical director, or even a captain that's weak. Not so much captains, I would say. 90% of the captains that I've worked with were really, really excellent and really strong. That's why they're captains. But in terms of medical directors, I've dealt with some few weak ones. And I'll give you some examples of what I'm talking about. Let me give you a good one. Years ago, I was working for a particular cruise line, and I got deployed on a very large cruise ship, which is okay. I mean, I've worked on many large cruise ships before. The captain of that particular ship wanted to know the diagnosis, the clinical diagnosis of all the patients. Not the passengers, because, he was afraid of being incriminated in some HIPAA Act story, but the crew. He wanted to know about the crew, their clinical diagnosis, and on that ship, there were about 1,500 crew, 1,500. So I signed on, I worked on the ship. So, I arrived as the new senior doctor, the new head of department. Initially, things were okay. And very quickly, things changed. And I remember a female crew member came to see me. And, she had a situation she had a urogenital disease. And so I examined her, diagnosed her, and started her on treatment. It was an STD. And shortly after that, I remember we were having lunch with the captain, I think the following day. And the captain asked me, oh, by the way, you saw this crew member, this lady? I said, yes. What was the story there? What's the problem? I said, no, she's okay. She's a little bit under the weather right now, but I've given her some few days off. She's on medication, she'll be fine. And then he followed by asking me, but what is she having? It was just the two of us at the table there, having lunch. And I told him, come on, Captain, you know better than that. I can't tell you that. That's confidential. And he said, yeah, but, as the captain of the ship, I think I should know about, the health situation of my crew. If something is not okay, I think I should know. That's how I operate. That's how I've always been operating. And I said, no, I understand your point. And as the medical doctor on board, if there is anything alarming, you'll be the first one to know. If there is a communicable disease, it was before COVID, so things such as SARS or varicella, chickenpox, or anything contagious that can spread very quickly. Legionnaires' disease, legionellosis, rubella, tuberculosis, all those, of course, you will be the first one to know. Don't worry, I will alert the CDC and yourself as well, that we can take the necessary precautions on board. So no worries, Captain, we'll always be informed for such situations, as per protocol, patient isolation, contact tracing, and, the protocol. And he said, yeah, no, thank you, I appreciate that, but what I'm talking about is I want to know the diagnosis of all the crew members that are booked off sick. If somebody comes to see you and then asks for some medication or sees the nurse, gets some medication, and then they go on their merry way and everything is okay, they go back to work, it's fine, I don't need to know about that. But when somebody is booked off sick, when you, doctor, you're booking somebody off sick, I need to know why. I need to know the diagnosis so that I can decide if it's something I should be worried about. And I said, yeah, Captain, that's the reason you have a doctor on board, is to make such assessments. And so, yes, of course, if somebody is sick, somebody is booked off sick, and every day we have crew members who are off sick for different reasons, right? Some because they just have a severe headache, incapacitating headache. They can go back to work. some for things that are not major, some because they might have the flu and they're out of commission for 1 or 2 days. Some are injured and they're unable to work, but they're not so injured that they need to be disembarked. They don't have a fracture. They don't have a fractured bone or something more serious. And so I just booked them off for 1, 2, or 3 days, maybe a strained muscle or a sprained ligament, and then they go back to work with treatment and, once they get better. But once again, if it's communicable disease, gastroenteritis, a respiratory illness such as Legionnaire's disease or chickenpox or any infectious disease that needs the CDC to be informed, you will be the first one to be informed. In fact, Captain, I will inform you even before I inform the CDC. I was like, yeah, no. Again, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that, like the case of this lady that came to see you, this crew member, I'd like to know why she came to see you. What's the diagnosis? It's very important that I know that. And the other day, you saw the guest service manager. It was a lady. And she wasn't feeling well, and you put her on treatment, and I would like to know what was the diagnosis there. And what I want you to do is, for every patient that is off sick, I want to know their names, I want to know the diagnosis. And I told him, yeah, but what's the purpose of that? It seems to be out of curiosity. And he said, no, it's not about curiosity, no. I want to know what's going on my ship, if there's something I should worry about. And so we went back and forth like that, and I told him, but once again, I'm the one who's making such decisions. And if there's anything to worry about, once again, you'll be the first one to know. But if it's not something that needs you or the CDC to be informed, there's no need for me to inform you. And so we went back and forth, and at the end he said, no, but I'm not really happy about that, doc. I really want to know. On my previous ships, the protocol I had is that I would ask the doctor, the senior doctor, to ask the nurses to send me a report at the end of the day. Once the medical center would be closed, at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, I would get a report to say that today we've seen this amount of crew members, these are their names, and these are the different diagnoses. Then I said, no, Captain, that's never going to happen. That I cannot do. There is something called the HIPAA Act. And besides the HIPAA Act is just patient-doctor confidentiality. As a doctor, I had to swear and take the Hippocratic Oath. And I cannot break the trust between a patient and a doctor. That's never going to happen. It's not something I've ever done, and it's not something I'll ever do. And I'm sure you, Captain, if you came to see me, you will not want me to tell your management shoreside, the captain came to see me yesterday, he's suffering from this, and I gave him that. Especially if you have more of a sensitive diagnosis that you really don't want anybody to know about. And so, we went back and forth. He wasn't happy. The situation quickly deteriorated that cruise. And at the end, he made a complaint to the medical director, because the medical director knew that that's how he would operate. And then the medical director contacted me and told me, hey, Tam, this captain is like that. He wants to know all the medical conditions. So just, that's how he was operating in his previous ships as well. So, our doctors usually, they just comply and they gave him the diagnosis and just give him a list of the crew members you see, the ones that are booked off, and then give him the diagnosis. And if you don't want to give him the diagnosis, at least give him the symptoms, right? You don't have to talk about treatment, but give them the symptoms, what they're suffering from. And I told him, that's never going to happen. What are you talking about? I'm not giving him any diagnosis, and I'm not giving any symptoms of my patients. That's completely confidential. I would never do that, ever. And he said, no, but just do it, just to de-escalate the situation. And I said, we're not de-escalating. There's nothing to de-escalate, because as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing to escalate. Yeah, but and I said, I'm really sorry, but I will not break my oath. I will not break the doctor-patient confidentiality. I will not break the HIPAA Act. I will not break my personal ethical values. I will not break my own moral values. I will never do that. I will always protect my patients, passengers and crew. Furthermore, if he goes to a nurse, if he goes and approaches a nurse behind my back, and I'm told by a nurse that, oh, by the way, the captain wants me to give him the diagnosis of our crew, I'm not gonna tolerate that. I'm gonna involve HR, shoreside, human resources, shoreside, and this thing is gonna quickly escalate. Then you will see escalation, and he will see escalation. So no, I can't do that. And then he said, okay, fine. 2 weeks went by, and the situation continued. I could see the captain was frustrated. He still wanted to know about the diagnosis of... Surprisingly, this captain was more interested in the diagnosis of female crew members, which I found... Why? He was not particularly interested in, a guy coming in, being booked off sick because he wasn't feeling well or anything like that. No, but he had a particular interest in female crew members coming to the medical center. So, 10 days went by, 2 cruises actually, so 14 days. And then the medical director came on board. A friendly visit, a routine visit to visit the medical center, the facilities, talk to the nurses, talk to the doctors. We were 2 doctors. So we had a bit of a conversation, the entire medical center, showed him around. It was very nice, it was very healthy, it was very courteous, very friendly, And then later on, he excused the nurses, and then my colleague, the other doctor, and then he wanted to speak to me one-on-one. And then we had a conversation, and he said, yeah, man, I spoke to the captain, and I'm going to speak to him again tomorrow about what we talked about. Come on, Cam, it's all good. Just give him the diagnosis. It's all good. It's, it is on cruise ships. It's okay. And I said, yeah, I know. I completely understand, but it's never going to happen. I said, yeah, I do understand. I do understand. Anyway, yeah. I support you because it's confidential, right? I mean, I will never force you to do that, But I thought we could de-escalate this matter because, he's seeing you as a difficult doctor, and you never want to have that label as being a difficult doctor, right? And I said, well, if I'm going to have to be called a difficult doctor, I will live by that label. I guess I am a difficult doctor because I'm standing for my patients. And so, he then went on to see the captain and have a meeting, which is usually what they do when medical directors come on board. They speak to the medical team, and they also speak to, at the end, actually, they speak to the captain as well. So they had a discussion, and I think the guys stressed that, but Dr. Tam is refusing to do this and that. And then the medical director left the ship. And the following cruise, I was told that I was to leave the ship. Just like that. I had to leave the ship, then I was transferred to another ship, which was unbelievable, on short notice as well. What was the reason? No, it's logistics, and it's better that we send you to that ship. The ship where I was on, we were doing the Caribbean itinerary, and the ship where I was going was also doing the Caribbean itinerary, but then the medical director spinned it as, that ship has such a beautiful itinerary, you're going to love it. I know you wanted to see these islands for a long time, so yeah, you're going to go there. And I was like, I've been to these islands before. It's still in the Caribbean. There's nothing special. It's pretty much the same itinerary. The Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, and come on. In fact, I would say it's even worse, because now we're just doing the Bahamas, Freeport, everybody's favorite, Nassau, and some other place there. And I thought, come on. But anyway, yeah, on short notice, I was removed. And the nurses were, because I was really so friendly with the nurses and the other doctor. We were all good friends. We were all chilling together. So they were saddened and said, no, but who's coming now? Who's going to be the next doctor? And I said, actually, I don't even know. And so I left, did not even have a handover with the next doctor. I was just removed. And the other doctor came. We completely missed each other, which is not okay. You need a handover. And I went on my ship. And then within 2-3 days, I got an email from the other doctor, the doctor that I had left on board, my friend. And he told me, Doc, you never know what's our new protocol here. Every day, at the end of the day, we need to give our captain a list with all the crew members and their diagnosis, those who have come to the medical center. And I thought, this is rubbish. And my friend, the other doctor said, I made it clear that I'm not comfortable with that. And they said, I have to do it. And I said, I'm not going to do it myself. And they said, no, fine. What's going to happen is the nurses, so that you doctors are not incriminated, if you don't want to be incriminated, the nurses will compile the list with diagnosis and everything, and then email it to the captain. And the new senior doctor was completely okay with that. He said, perfect, we'll do that. And that's what happened. And then my friend told me that, you know what, to be honest with you, I'm actually resigning. And don't tell anybody, but, next cruise I'll be out. And he resigned. He left. He was living in Spain, actually. So he resigned and he took a direct flight back to Madrid. I've made a course. It's a masterclass for doctors on getting a job on a cruise ship. This is the question I get every week, several times a week, for years now. How do I get a job on a cruise ship as a doctor? So this masterclass is 1 hour and 45 minutes. And I'll give you all the information you need for you to get a job on a cruise ship. The layout is the same as when I do online consultations, one-on-one with doctors. So I have kept the same layout. I'm talking about the same points. If you're interested in getting a job on a cruise ship, please buy this course. The course also comes with PDFs for you to download and keep, and the videos are divided into multiple parts. You can download all these parts and keep them with you. You don't have to come back online to rewatch it. Once you buy it, it belongs to you. Just a reminder, my content is copyrighted, so it's not to be shared publicly on public domains, on public forums, and it's not to be resold. Now, the content of the course, the first part, module 1, is all about the requirements. What are the requirements you need to have in your resume to get a job on a cruise ship? Module 2 is some information on getting above the requirements. What else can you add that is beyond the requirements for you to secure a job interview? To make your resume pop, basically, and to jumpstart the queue of candidates. Module 3 is about the ATS system. How to beat the ATS. When I say how to beat the ATS, it sounds as if the ATS is your enemy, but in a way it is, because the ATS, let's face it, it's designed to eliminate candidates before they even get a chance to get an invitation for an interview. So I'll give you good information on how to beat the ATS and guarantee that your resume will not be filtered out by the ATS. In Module 4, I talk about interview expectations. This is a point of anxiety for many doctors, or for all professions, not just doctors, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, an engineer. It's a new company, you don't really know the kind of interview you're going to get. So what are the interview expectations? What are they expecting from you? And what should you expect from them during your interview? Module 5 is about the interview process. And there I talk about the process of interviewing. From the time you apply for a position to the time you actually get on board. What is the interview process? How many rounds of interview are you going to get? Who are the different people who are going to interview you? So that will help you, and it's gonna alleviate some anxiety as well. And finally, number 6, module 6, the most important module, is the interview questions. What are the interview questions? Of course, when I'm asked on YouTube, hey, what are the interview questions? I have an interview with this cruise line or that cruise line. I can just give you the interview questions. That will be, But in this course, I'm going to give you all the interview questions. I'm covering all the common clinical scenarios that are being asked by all cruise lines, so that you know exactly what to expect. They will not deviate from these questions. There might be some few alterations to the questions, but the topic is going to remain the same. So I'm giving you all the topics that are going to be discussed during your interview. Of course, I go deep into it. You will never be asked all the questions that I cover, but I cover everything. And so by the end of the course, by the end of my course, my class, you will be completely covered and you will be guaranteed to succeed. So you can buy my masterclass on Patreon. The price is $249. Do not buy it via the iOS app because the iOS has a surcharge on Patreon. So if you buy it through your iOS app, you will not pay the $249. I think you will have to pay $350. So you have $100 off if you buy it directly, not with the iOS, meaning directly with your credit card. Now, in addition to these 1 hour and 45 minutes, I also do one-on-one consultations for those who want, meaning you've purchased the course, but you still have some questions. Although I suspect because the course is so well done and it covers everything, I don't think you'll have any questions after that. But if you still have some questions, you're not sure about certain things, including the course, we can have a session and we can talk about maybe some points of clarification if you do have some, but I doubt that you have some because I talk for 1 hour and 45 minutes and I really cover everything. Yeah, so that's it. Basically, that's my course. I hope you're going to really enjoy it. It's a course for doctors, but if you're a nurse, it's the same process. You're going to get more or less the same questions, but you will not be asked to go deep as a doctor would have to go. So even as a nurse, this is definitely beneficial because the process is the same. The ATS, how to beat the ATS, the requirements, to go above and beyond the requirements. There's a lot of similarities, and so you will also benefit from the course. So I hope you'll enjoy my class. I've put a lot of effort into it, and I've made it as clear as possible. Clear, straight to the point, no fluff added, really straight questions, straight answers. I also talk about simple things like how should you present when you're interviewing, your appearance, the dress code. There are some questions like, tell me more about yourself. There are questions like, tell me about your weaknesses. So I cover everything possible. Cheers.